Welcome to my top 10 worker placement games. I was going to have Pedro here, but he wasn't able to make it. But we're going to go chug along here on this list. Worker placement is probably my favorite mechanism, maybe my favorite genre of games, if you will. Love the worker placement. There's just something about it that really, really speaks to me, and I love it. So this list was extremely hard for me to narrow down to what I wanted to do. I'll be honest, I plan on doing some other top 10s, maybe some top 10 gateway worker placements, top 10 heavy worker placements, top 10 middle, and maybe hit the whole spectrum because I like it so much. There are so many honorable mentions that I didn't include on this list, but I think have a lot of merit. So this is a really hard list for me to make. Let's go ahead and jump right into this list and see what there is. The Colonists. The Colonists is a huge, long game. And I included this on the list because this is probably the most in-depth, long, just spread out worker placement game ever made. I mean, this is like a 6 to 8 hour game if you go through the whole thing. And maybe even longer if you have any analysis paralysis at all. This is a huge undertaking. Most gamers are never going to play this game. And if they do, they're only going to play a portion of it. I can't stress how good this game is. Now, is this game worth the investment of time? Sure, but I think you can get that package in a lot shorter time, which is why it's not higher on this list, but I still think it's worth mentioning. This is a game maybe in a couple years would fall off this list because it's not going to make it to the table. I'm not going to be reminded constantly of how great it is, and plus new games will come out and possibly push it out. But The Colonist, here we sit. This is a great worker placement game. Number 9 is Village. Now this is a really cool worker placement game where your workers actually age and then die, and then you have to bury them. It's a really cool little mechanism. Now some people don't like this game because it can be a little bit brutal at times because your workers are dying, but I find this game to be fantastic, and I was a little surprised it's so low on this list because I would have thought it had been higher. But my gosh, guys, the top 10 games of such a wonderful mechanism with so many great games is just fantastic. I'd even put My Village here, the game by Stronghold Games. It's a fantastic game. You can't go wrong with either one of those. Just depends on which mechanism you like better inside of it. You can see my reviews for that. But My Village or Village are just a fantastic choices at number 9. Robinson Crusoe is next. Now this is the only cooperative game on the list. And it's very unique that you would see worker placement in a cooperative way. So you're going to have a couple workers that represent your actions for the turn. Maybe you have the dog Friday and some other things that can be put into the game and some other characters you can get as you play. And you'll be kind of cooperatively, strategically deciding what the group is going to do and how you're going to do it. In this one, if you put one worker on it, you will have to roll a dice to see if you succeed or get hurt. Or if you put 2 workers, then you automatically succeed. And it's just a brilliant game. A lot of people talk about how brutal this game is. I really like it. I think it has a good feeling to it. And if you're into worker placement and you like cooperative games, then this is a no-brainer. Check this one out. Robinson Crusoe. Number 7 is Euphoria. Now this game goes up a little bit on my list because my wife likes it so much. This is one of her favorite games. And if she ever sat down and do a top 100 or even a top 10, I think this might make the list. Euphoria is a really fun, but a little bit more complicated worker placement. There's some kind of weird things going on in it. And you can kind of see where Stegmaier was going with this game as he progressed into the future of his games. But Euphoria is what I keep going back to. I just like it so much. The components are fantastic. The actions and decisions that you're making are really good. And I really like this one. I'm going to highly recommend Euphoria. Number 6 is Brew Crafters. And this might not be a game that you would think would make this list, but I find this game fantastic. I love the idea of not every game will you make the same kind of upgrades that you will, and these upgrades do different things, and they're all pretty good. You can get employees that come in, and they kind of give you bonuses and ways to improve, and at the same time, you're just trying to chug out that beer as much as possible to get victory points. This is a fantastic game. It's one I don't hear about a whole lot anymore, and I have no idea why. I think maybe another game on this list may have stolen some of its thunder, but man, this game is so good. And the tension you feel of trying to get those beers produced and making that production more effortless and efficient is just a wonderful little engine that you're going to build in this game. And you literally, I feel like the options you have to build are just fantastic. And every time you play, I've tried to do something different, not get stuck in one little pattern of playing the game, and I've been rewarded for that over and over and over again. Wonderful game, Brew Crafters. Number 5 is Viticulture. I'd probably recommend playing this with the Tuscany expansion, but I'm one of those people who like the base game also. I don't feel like you need the Essential Edition or Tuscany, although I think it adds a lot to the game. Yes, if you're willing to add it in, by all means do so. I think this game has maybe stolen some of the thunder from Brew Crafters, in my opinion, and for many, maybe has replaced Euphoria, but I think they're very, very different games. I think this game has a lot closer to Brew Crafters than it does Euphoria. Viticulture is a wonderful game about creating wine and the production process of wine. Sound like Brew Crafters, right? But it's very different. You never have enough workers to do what you want in this game. And the base game is set up into 2 sections, let's say summer and winter. And both sides have different actions, but you have the same number of workers for each. So if you spend all your workers in summer, you won't have anybody for winter. So maybe you don't take an action over here, so you can do one of this. Now, my copy, I do have the Tuscany Collector's Edition of this, so mine does come with the El Grande guide that you can go anywhere you want. I've heard that fixed the game. People had problems with it. So this is actually an excellent game. Viticulture is one of those worker placement games that I will be going back to over and over and over again for many, many years, and it probably will never leave my collection. Number 4 is one of my favorite long, drawn-out, hard-to-teach games of all times, and that's Kanban, the Automobile Revolution. I love this game. When I play this game, I feel like I'm designing and producing cars and testing them and then getting rid of them, i.e. selling them. I feel like this game is so wonderful. I love how this game works. There's different difficulty settings, and it is complex. There's a lot of pieces going together. But once you start explaining it, and once you have somebody at the table who knows what they're doing, what you're doing fits so well together. It makes sense that you have to get the blueprint before you produce them, and you have to test them out before you can sell them. It all makes sense. Absolutely adore Kanban. It's one of my favorite games, and I have to tell you, it is complicated. It's not as long as the Colonists, my number 10 game, but Kanban is wonderful. If you have not played this game, sit down with somebody that knows how to play. Let them teach it to you. And if you enjoy longer games at all, this is one that will pay off in spades. Kanban. Number 3 is Raiders of the North Sea. Now, this game was just back up on Kickstarter, and I think that's the only place you could get it. I don't think it's ever made to stores. If it has, and I apologize. I don't think that it has, and this is the game that you're missing. This is the worker placement game that you've never heard of, or maybe just heard of recently that you're missed. 2 new expansions just came out for it, which are fantastic. It integrates into the game. I'd play with them every single time. Although I don't think there's anything missing from the base game. It's just, wow how that works. And Shem Phillips is one of those guys. He's a new designer, at least for me. And this guy, this may be the best game he ever produces, which is fine because this game is fantastic. It's a shame it doesn't get the exposure that it should get. But this is the designer to watch. This guy and what he's doing, this is so fantastic. The game is so simple. You're going to put a worker on the board and activate that spot. And you're going to take another worker, not the one you placed, but another worker off the board, and you're going to activate that spot. That little change to worker placement is just fantastic. And the fact that other games have not stolen this yet just tells me people aren't paying attention, because it is absolutely brilliant. And every once in a while, you're going to have a mechanism like worker placement or something else, and somebody's going to come along and make a tweak to it, and that tweak works brilliantly, and this is it. The way that you go out and you pillage and raid, and you go out further and further and further as the game progresses, because you can't go out that far at the beginning because you don't have the resource or the ability to do so, and you build up, and you're building up the further out you go. This game is wonderful. If you have not played this game, stop what you're doing, find a copy, doesn't matter what you pay for it, buy this game, it is worth it. Number 2 is, I always put these games together because they're pretty much the same game, Agricola and Converter. These are my number 2 games. These are an evergreen in my family. My wife and I love these games. They will never go. I have both. So what's the main difference? Agricola is going to be pretty much the same game as Converter, but more card play. If you don't mind the randomness of cards or drafting them in the beginning, there's going to be a little bit more card play to it. There's also going to be a little bit more blocking. I can block what you need by using my workers. With Agricola, I feel like the best strategy, and this may be just me, but I feel like the best strategy is to get more people, right? That makes sense in most worker placement games. The more people I have, the more places on the board I can use, right? That makes sense. Now, Converter is going to get rid of those cards, and everybody's going to have the same buildings that you can build throughout the entire game. And that does open up some strategies, and you have the dwarf that can go in and go on adventures and stuff, and that's really neat. Now, while we're at it, you can put Field of Arl in here, and you can put in Feast for Odin in here. These collection of games that Uwe Rosenberg has created, I mean, they work very, very similar, and I didn't want to eat up the whole list with all 4 of these games because they're top notch. To be honest, I'd probably push nearly everything down. Maybe not Raiders of the North Sea, but everything else would be pushed down because these games are so fantastic. And I felt a little weird because they're so similar, and I know they're not in the same universe, but they feel like the same variants of the same game. I know they're not. I'm a fan of worker placements, but I didn't want this whole list eaten up with Uwe Rosenberg worker placement games. So I'm going to put them all here, and you can choose which one you like based on how you play. Feast for Odin being the most complicated. Fields of Arl is just a 2-player game. Agricola has the card game, and Converta might be the best center, the most easily accessible, if you can say that about these 4 games. My number 1 worker placement game should come as no surprise to anybody who saw my top 100. It's Carson City. I still absolutely love this game. I don't understand why this designer doesn't have 50,000 games out on the market. This is a wonderful game, and I saw the Kickstarter for it. But you go to the store, you don't see Carson City on the store walls. Why is this game not in stores? Why is this game not being played? Why is this game not known about? Why is Agricola everywhere, but not Carson City? What makes Carson City different? Carson City is cool because in most worker placement games, if somebody takes a spot, you cannot take it. Well, this one, well, heck, I can take that spot too. We're going to have a shooting match for it. So this is ideal also in this game that you might want to hold back some of your workers and not use them all because you're going to be dueling with other people for positions. There's also, so you have the worker placement in it. There's also, everybody's going to pick a unique power. There's going to be a certain amount of people or characters or personalities you can choose from each round. So you get a unique power every single round. That's fantastic. On top of that, there's an economic system going on there with the actual city of Carson City being built and these buildings that you're going to be getting money for. And the game really prevents a runaway leader with the money because somebody can go on your building and steal half of your income unless you can fight them for it. And you're going to be spending resources fighting them if you get a really big building that's worth a lot of money. Wow! And the game is not complicated. This game is less complicated than Converta. It's not a gateway game at all. It's just a medium weight game, and it's very, very easy. And I have no idea why you're not playing it, why you're not talking about it, and why it's not on store shelves. Why is this fantastic game, not being sold? And I heard Tom Vasel talking about how there's so many good games being released that being a good game is not enough. But with this game, you get a really neat theme. It's integrated into the mechanisms, and it's really fun. It does have direct player interaction, which a lot of people are looking for, but you don't really duel that much in this game. You only duel if you're running away with the game or you're in a really hotly contested spot. Then you'll see some of these duels, and in the last round, there probably more than there ever will be in the rest of the rounds because those positions become so important. But this is a fantastic, wonderful game. If you have not played Carson City, I highly recommend getting the big box set. But if you just want the base game is fantastic. Now I'm going to do another review of this Carson City and talk about which parts you should keep in and which ones you should keep out based on your playing style. But for right now, I'm telling you, this is a fantastic game. And if you splurge and get the big box collector's edition, I don't think you'll have any complaints. Thank you so much for watching until the end of this top 10 list of worker placement games. I have to stress, this is a really hard list for me to make. I really like worker placement games. There are so many really solid, great, good worker placement games on the market. If I missed something that you like, please put it down in the feedback, in the comments. I might want to check a game out and see if it's maybe something I haven't played, or maybe I can give you a reason why it wasn't included. I mean, I have a longer list than just 10, and I have to narrow it down. It's really, really hard to do. On any given day when you're making these kind of lists, your opinion can change, of course, based on what your moods are. But I feel like this is a really solid 10 worker placement games. It probably skews a little heavier than most, medium to heavy, or maybe just medium. But it's a really hard list to make, and I look forward to making more of these. Thank you very much for watching.